I lost everything when the HOA burned my mansion to the ground, but they never imagined I'd use my millions to buy their precious organization and turn their lives upside down. Would you have the courage to take down a corrupt HOA that destroyed your life? Comment below where you're watching from. You've got to be kidding me. I held the bright pink violation notice in my hand, staring at the woman on my doorstep. Karen Thompson stood with her arms crossed, a clipboard clutched to her chest, and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Rules are rules, Mr. Harrison. Your rose bushes are 2 inches over the height limit. Pinecrest Gardens has standards to maintain. 20 years I'd spent building this house. 20 years of overtime, careful planning, and attention to every detail. My 3-story dream home stood as a testament to hard work and perseverance. The garden alone had taken 5 years to perfect. 2 inches? Really? I looked past her at the immaculate roses my late wife had planted. Can't you make an exception? These bushes are award-winning. Karen's smile tightened. Exceptions lead to chaos. You have 48 hours to trim them or face a $100 daily fine. I watched her march down my cobblestone walkway, stopping to take photos of my fountain with her phone. Something told me this wouldn't be the last I'd see of her. I was right. The next morning, 5 more violation notices were stuck to my door like unwanted wallpaper. Unapproved water feature, non-conforming mailbox design, excessive holiday decorations. I read them aloud, my coffee growing cold in my hand. It was February. The only decoration was a single heart wreath I'd forgotten to take down. My neighbor Douglas Miller waved from across the street. He crossed over, looking nervously toward Karen's house down the block. I see she's found a new target, he said quietly. What's her deal? I asked. Douglas lowered his voice. She's running for HOA president next month. Current president is retiring. Every election cycle she picks a few homeowners to terrorize. Shows how tough she'll be on rule breakers. That's insane. Welcome to Pinecrest Gardens. Douglas patted my shoulder. My advice? Just comply. She made the Johnsons' lives hell until they moved. Their house sold for way under value to her brother's development company, coincidentally. I spent that afternoon trimming rose bushes that didn't need trimming. As the sun set, I admired my beautiful home, wondering why anyone would have a problem with it. The imported Italian fountain bubbled peacefully. My vintage Corvette sat gleaming in the driveway. Next morning, 3 more violations. Vehicle must be garaged. Excessive water usage. Improper trash can placement. This was getting ridiculous. I called the HOA management company. I'm sorry, Mr. Harrison, the representative said, but all violations are verified by our inspection team. You can appeal at next month's meeting. And in the meantime, the fines accumulate, I'm afraid. I tried reasoning with Karen directly. Big mistake. She answered her door wearing an HOA polo shirt, like some kind of uniform. I'm just doing my job, she said, not inviting me in. If everyone ignored the rules, property values would plummet. My house is the most valuable on the block, I pointed out. Something flashed in her eyes. Resentment, maybe jealousy. Size isn't everything, Mr. Harrison. Conformity creates harmony. 2 weeks and $1,400 in fines later, I attended my first HOA meeting. I was shocked to see how few neighbors showed up. Karen sat at the board table, though she wasn't yet president. Her influence was obvious. The current board members kept deferring to her. When I tried to address my violations, the board president cut me off. Compliance first, then appeals. Driving home, I noticed Karen's brother's car in her driveway. I recognized him from his development company billboard. Something felt off about this whole situation. That night, I couldn't sleep. I pulled up the property maps of Pinecrest Gardens online. My lot was the largest in the community, positioned perfectly at the neighborhood entrance with unobstructed mountain views. A developer's dream. The pieces started fitting together. The targeting of specific homeowners. Properties selling below market value. Karen's brother swooping in to purchase them. I dug deeper, reviewing old HOA newsletters. Over the past 5 years, 7 homeowners had moved following aggressive violation campaigns. All 7 properties were now owned by Thompson Development Group. So that's the game, I muttered to myself. The next day, I had my home inspected by an independent company. Everything passed with flying colors: electrical, plumbing, structure. I installed security cameras and documented every inch of my property. When Karen showed up with another violation, this time claiming my grass was a 1/4 inch too tall, I was ready. I filed a complaint with the State Housing Board, I informed her calmly. Selective enforcement of HOA regulations is illegal. Her smile faltered. We enforce equally. Really? Because my documentation shows my neighbors have the same grass height, identical mailboxes, and similar fountains. Yet only I receive violations. Are you threatening me? Karen's voice rose. Not at all. Just letting you know I'm aware of what's happening to property values when certain homeowners are targeted. She left quickly that day. For a week, no new violations appeared. I thought I'd won. Then I received notice of an emergency HOA meeting. The only agenda item: discussion of eyesore property at 1024 Whispering Pines Lane, my address. At the meeting, Karen had prepared a slideshow of my home. Photos taken at odd angles, making my beautiful residence look ominous and out of place. This monstrosity is destroying our community's character, she declared to the handful of residents present. Property values will suffer unless we take action. Several board members nodded in agreement. I noticed Karen's brother sitting in the back, studying architectural drawings. When it was my turn to speak, I approached the podium with a folder of documents. Before we continue, I said calmly, I'd like everyone to see these property assessments showing my home has increased neighboring values by 12%. Also, here are photos of 16 other homes with similar features that have received 0 violations. Murmurs spread through the room. Karen tried to cut me off, but I wasn't finished. I've also brought copies of sales records showing how properties targeted by the HOA sold below market value. All purchased by Thompson Development Group. Karen's brother suddenly became very interested in his phone. Several homeowners turned to look at him. This isn't relevant, Karen snapped. But it was too late. Seeds of doubt were planted. The meeting adjourned without a vote on my property. As I walked to my car, Douglas and his wife Stephanie hurried over. That was brave, Stephanie whispered. But be careful. Karen doesn't give up easily. I'm not worried, I said, though something in their concerned faces made me uneasy. That night, I received an email notification. An HOA inspection was scheduled for my home tomorrow to check for potential electrical hazards. I immediately called my lawyer, who advised documenting everything. I double-checked my security system and went to bed feeling unsettled. I couldn't have known then how right I was to be concerned, or that within 24 hours, my life would literally go up in flames. I woke to pounding on my door at 7 a.m. 3 men in Pinecrest Gardens HOA polo shirts stood on my porch, Karen hovering behind them. Mandatory safety inspection, the tallest one announced, flashing a badge that looked suspiciously homemade. My lawyer advised no inspections without proper notice, I replied, keeping the door chain latched. Karen pushed forward. The email sent yesterday was your notice. Fire hazards require immediate attention. Fire hazards? I repeated. My electrical system was certified last month. A concerned neighbor reported sparks from your roofline, Karen said, not meeting my eyes. We're just being cautious. I knew it was bogus, but causing a scene would only escalate things. Fine, but I'll be recording everything and following behind you. The inspectors spent an hour poking around my house, focusing strangely on my electrical panel and circuit breakers. One kept disappearing into rooms alone until I insisted on accompanying each of them. Karen took photos of everything, including personal items that had nothing to do with safety. Your solar panels aren't up to code, she declared, staring at my roof through the bedroom window. They were installed by certified professionals and approved by the city, I countered. City approval doesn't mean HOA approval, she snapped. They're reflective hazards. Neighbors have complained about glare. Which neighbors? That's confidential. After they finally left, I immediately checked my security cameras. Something felt very wrong about the inspection. The footage showed one inspector lingering at my electrical panel, but his body blocked what he was doing. I called Douglas. Has anyone from the HOA ever inspected your home for fire hazards? I asked. Never, he said. That's not even within their authority. Electrical inspections require licensed professionals. My unease growing, I decided to take precautions. I backed up important documents to the cloud and photographed valuable items for insurance purposes. I even packed an overnight bag with essentials. Something told me I might need it. That afternoon, I installed additional security cameras and motion sensors around my property. While working, I noticed Karen and her brother parked down the street, watching my house. They drove away when they saw me looking. I considered moving my vintage Corvette to a secure garage but decided that would show fear. Instead, I called my insurance company to verify my coverage was comprehensive. Everything looks good, Mr. Harrison, the agent assured me. Your premium is paid up, and you have full replacement coverage. Including fire? I asked specifically. Absolutely. Fire, flood, natural disasters, you're fully protected. That night, I had dinner with the Millers. Stephanie seemed nervous. We should have warned you sooner about Karen, she said, pouring more wine. She's been getting worse. Last year, the Williams family had their garden destroyed overnight. No proof it was her, but everyone knew. My security system would catch anything like that, I assured her. Douglas leaned forward. It's not just petty vandalism anymore. Tyler Jenkins stood up to her at a meeting last summer. 2 weeks later, a pipe mysteriously burst in his home while he was on vacation. Water damage destroyed everything. And he just happened to sell to Karen's brother at a massive loss, Stephanie added. That night, I had trouble sleeping. Around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed with a security alert. Someone was at my electrical box again. I pulled up the camera feed to see a hooded figure tampering with something. I called 911 immediately, but by the time I got downstairs with a flashlight, they were gone. The police arrived 20 minutes later, took a report, but said there wasn't much they could do without identifying the person. They suggested I hire private security. The next morning, I had an electrician check my entire system. Someone's definitely been messing with your breaker box, he confirmed, showing me signs of tampering. I fixed it, but I'd report this. It could have caused a serious fire. I filed another police report, this time with the electrician's assessment. The officer seemed more concerned but admitted that without clear evidence of who did it, prosecution would be difficult. Later that day, I received notice that my HOA fines had quadrupled. The reason? Continued non-compliance and safety hazards. The total now reached almost $10,000. I tried calling the management company but got nowhere. My lawyer advised me that while the fines were almost certainly illegal, fighting them would be a lengthy process. That evening, Karen hosted a community safety meeting at her house. I wasn't invited, but Douglas attended and texted me updates. They're talking about your house being a hazard to the neighborhood. Karen's showing doctored photos, making it look run down. Another text. Her brother just suggested that problem properties should be subject to community acquisition through eminent domain. They're actually discussing forcing you out. I spent that night researching HOA laws and eminent domain. They couldn't legally do what they were threatening, but that didn't mean they wouldn't try something else. The next morning, I had an unexpected visitor. A sympathetic board member named Eleanor who had missed recent meetings due to health issues. I needed to warn you, she said quietly on my porch, refusing to come inside. Karen has convinced half the board that your home is a liability. There's talk of placing a lien if you don't pay the fines. That would never hold up legally, I said. Legal doesn't matter if they make your life miserable enough to leave, Eleanor replied. I've seen it before. Before leaving, she slipped me a USB drive. Security footage from the clubhouse. You'll want to see the board's executive session from Tuesday. The video showed Karen and the board discussing my property. Her brother was present, showing renderings of a new development, luxury condos where my house currently stood. Once Harrison's out, we can rezone this entire section, he was saying. The return on investment will be substantial for everyone involved. I'd seen enough. This wasn't just harassment, it was a criminal conspiracy. I copied the video and sent it to my lawyer, who agreed we had grounds for serious legal action. I decided to attend a city council meeting that evening to publicly address what was happening. Several neighbors came to support me, including the Millers and Eleanor. After presenting my evidence, including the tampering with my electrical system, the council seemed genuinely concerned. A city inspector promised to investigate the HOA's practices. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was making progress. I returned home late, exhausted but hopeful. As I pulled into my driveway, I noticed my security system was offline. I tried rebooting it from my phone without success. Moving cautiously, I entered through the garage, grabbing a flashlight and baseball bat. Everything seemed normal inside, but the hair on my neck stood up. Something wasn't right. I checked my circuit breaker first. It had been switched off. When I flipped it back on, I heard a strange crackling sound from upstairs. That's when I smelled smoke. I ran upstairs to find my home office filling with smoke, flames already crawling up the curtains. The fire extinguisher barely made a dent. I called 911 while rushing to grab what few irreplaceable items I could. By the time I made it outside, flames were visible from the street. Neighbors emerged from their homes, some in shock, others already calling for help. As fire trucks wailed in the distance, I stood helplessly watching 20 years of dreams burn. Through the gathering crowd, I spotted Karen across the street. She wasn't calling emergency services. She wasn't offering help or showing concern. She was smiling. I should have known something wasn't right when I got that worried call from my neighbor Stephanie. "There are people from the HOA walking around your property," she whispered into the phone. "They say they're doing an inspection, but nobody told us about it." I was 3 hours away at a business conference, presenting my new software to investors. "Did they have permission to enter my property?" I asked, feeling my heart race. "Karen has a clipboard and keeps pointing at your house. She has some official-looking papers." I ended my call with Stephanie and immediately phoned Douglas, who lived on the other side of my property. No answer. I tried the local police non-emergency line, explaining the situation. "Sir, if they're from your HOA and have documentation for an inspection, there's not much we can do," the dispatcher explained. "You'd need to check your HOA agreement." I scrolled through my HOA contract on my phone. There it was in tiny print. Emergency inspections could be conducted with 24-hour notice. Notice I never received. I called Karen directly, but she didn't pick up. I left an urgent message demanding they leave my property immediately. 3 hours later, as my car turned onto Whispering Pines Lane, I saw the flames before I even reached my house. Orange and red tongues licked at the evening sky, consuming my beautiful mansion. Fire trucks lined the street, hoses snaking across my perfect lawn. "No, no, no!" I screamed, jumping out of my car while it was still rolling to a stop. A firefighter held me back as I tried to run toward the inferno. "Sir, you can't go in there. The structure is unstable." My legs gave out beneath me. I collapsed onto the pavement, watching helplessly as my life's work crumbled. 20 years of memories, photos of my parents, my rare book collection, all turning to ash. Through my tears, I spotted Karen across the street. She wasn't calling emergency services. She wasn't comforting neighbors. She stood with arms crossed, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "What happened?" I croaked to the fire chief when he approached. "Preliminary investigation shows it was electrical. Looks like a fault in your main circuit breaker." He shook his head. "Was anyone inside?" "No. I live alone." I stared at the smoking ruins. "But that's impossible. I had the whole electrical system upgraded last month. I passed every inspection." The chief gave me a sympathetic look. "Sometimes these things happen, sir. We'll do a full investigation." I spent that night in a hotel, numb with shock. By morning, I'd contacted my insurance company, certain they'd help me rebuild. That's when I discovered the second bombshell. "I'm sorry, Mr. Winters, But your policy coverage was changed 3 weeks ago, the insurance agent explained. The new policy specifically excludes fire damage. That's impossible, I shouted. I never changed my policy. We have the paperwork right here, sir. Signed by you. I demanded they send me the document. One glance at the signature told me everything. It was a forgery, and not even a good one. The fire investigation team called 2 days later. We found evidence of tampering with your circuit breaker, the investigator explained. Someone deliberately overloaded your system. This wasn't an accident, Mr. Winters. This was arson. I wasn't surprised. I already knew who was responsible. I hired a private investigator who uncovered that the emergency inspection was based on a fake complaint about a gas leak. Karen had used it as an opportunity to access my home. Security footage from Douglas's doorbell camera captured Karen and 2 board members entering my house with tools that weren't needed for any inspection. The final piece clicked when my investigator discovered Karen's brother had recently started a development company. They'd been eyeing my 3-acre lot, the largest in Pinecrest Gardens, for a multi-unit development that would make them millions. I tried going to the police with my evidence, but Karen's husband was a retired police captain with friends in the department. My case was deprioritized. The district attorney claimed there wasn't enough evidence for charges. As I stood in the ashes of my former life 1 week after the fire, picking through blackened remains hoping to find something, anything, that survived, I made a decision. These people had taken everything from me, thinking I would just roll over and accept it. They had no idea who they were dealing with. I looked up at the sky, rain beginning to fall on my face, mixing with my tears. This isn't over, I whispered. Not by a long shot. I walked away from the ruins of my dream home, never looking back. I wasn't the same person who had lived there. That man died in the fire. The person who emerged from those ashes was someone new. Someone with nothing left to lose and the resources to make those responsible pay for what they'd done. Karen Thompson thought she'd won. She thought she'd broken me. She was about to learn her biggest mistake wasn't burning down my house. It was leaving me alive to seek justice. $6 million, my banker said, looking at me with wide eyes. Are you absolutely certain you want to liquidate these assets on such short notice? I didn't hesitate. Yes, and I need it done today. I'd spent the week after the fire learning everything I could about Pinecrest Gardens HOA. What I discovered shocked even me. The HOA wasn't run by the residents at all. It was managed by Evergreen Community Management, a private company that handled dozens of neighborhoods. The homeowners had almost no real power. Karen was just a puppet president who carried out their dirty work while thinking she was in charge. The real decisions came from above. If I wanted true revenge and justice, I needed to aim higher. Evergreen Community Management was privately held by a small group of investors, one of whom was looking to sell his 30% stake. It wasn't a controlling interest, but it was enough to get my foot in the door. And $6 million was exactly the right price. I made the purchase through a shell company my attorney created. Nobody knew I was the buyer, not even the other investors. I wanted the element of surprise. While finalizing the purchase, I received a certified letter from the HOA demanding I clear the unsightly debris from my burned property within 10 days or face daily fines of $500. It was signed by Karen Thompson, HOA president. The audacity took my breath away. That letter was the invitation I needed. 3 days later, Pinecrest Gardens residents packed into the community center for an emergency HOA meeting. The agenda, discussing the unfortunate fire incident and community beautification plans for my lot. I slipped in quietly and took a seat in the back row. Nobody paid attention to me. They were all focused on Karen at the podium. As we all know, the Winters property has become an eyesore, Karen announced, clicking through a slideshow of my destroyed home. The insurance company is dragging their feet, but we can't allow this blight to affect our property values. Douglas Miller raised his hand. Shouldn't we wait until James has a chance to rebuild? The man lost everything. Karen's smile didn't reach her eyes. Unfortunately, Mr. Winters failed to maintain proper insurance coverage. And frankly, this gives us an opportunity. I propose we use the Community Reserve Fund to purchase the lot and create a neighborhood park. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I felt my blood boil. They were planning to steal my land while I was still reeling from their attack. And I've prepared the perfect design, Karen continued, clicking to the next slide. My brother's development company has generously offered to handle construction at cost. The image showed a small playground surrounded by expensive townhomes. This wasn't a park, it was a development plan with a token swing set. I stood up slowly. I have a question. The room fell silent as heads turned toward me. Karen's face drained of color when she recognized me. Mr. Winters, she stammered. We didn't expect you to attend. Clearly, I replied, walking toward the front of the room. I'm curious about something. Under what authority does the HOA plan to purchase my property? I haven't put it up for sale. Karen recovered quickly. The HOA bylaws allow for property acquisition when an owner abandons their responsibilities. You haven't cleared the debris despite our notice. Interesting interpretation, I said, nodding thoughtfully. But there's been a change in management that might affect these plans. What are you talking about? Karen snapped. I pulled a folder from my briefcase and handed copies to each board member. 3 days ago, I purchased a 30% stake in Evergreen Community Management. As the largest single shareholder, I've called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. Gasps echoed through the room. Karen snatched the papers, her hands shaking. This can't be real, she whispered. Oh, it's very real, I replied. And my first order of business will be a complete audit of all HOA finances and activities for the past 5 years, including the circumstances surrounding my house fire. The blood drained completely from Karen's face. You can't do that. Actually, I can. And I will. I turned to address the stunned residents. For years, this HOA has bullied and exploited homeowners. They've selectively enforced rules, issued arbitrary fines, and possibly committed criminal acts. That ends now. Stephanie Miller stood up, tears in her eyes. They forced us to sell our house last year with those ridiculous fines we couldn't pay. We had to move in with our daughter. Others began sharing similar stories. Elderly residents forced to pay consulting fees to avoid violations. Families harassed until they sold below market value to Karen's brother. This is slander, Karen shouted. The board won't stand for this. I smiled for the first time in weeks. The board doesn't have a choice. As of tomorrow, I'll begin restructuring Evergreen's management team. Anyone found to have engaged in illegal activities will be reported to the State Attorney General's office. Karen lunged for me, but her husband held her back. You'll regret this, she hissed. You have no idea who you're dealing with. I leaned in close, my voice low enough that only she could hear. No, Karen, you have no idea who you're dealing with. You took everything from me. Now I'm going to take everything from you. Legally, methodically, and completely. I straightened up and addressed the room again. I invite all residents to attend tomorrow's Evergreen Board meeting. It's time for transparency in how this community is governed. As I walked out, people surrounded me, sharing their own HOA horror stories. For the first time since the fire, I felt something other than despair. I felt purpose. My phone buzzed with a text from my private investigator. Found proof of Karen's involvement in the arson. Chief Building Inspector confirms circuit breaker was tampered with. Have video evidence of her brother on your property day of the fire. I smiled as I read it. Karen thought burning down my house would break me. Instead, it had given me the motivation to dismantle her entire corrupt world. Tomorrow would be just the beginning. I walked into the emergency HOA meeting with my documents hidden in a leather portfolio. No one paid me much attention. I was just the guy whose house had burned down. Perfect. Karen stood at the podium, her pearls gleaming under the community center lights. As we all know, we've had a terrible tragedy in our neighborhood, she said, not sounding sad at all. But every cloud has a silver lining. With that eyesore gone, we can finally use that prime lot for something that benefits everyone. A new playground and garden area. Several board members nodded. My neighbor Douglas looked down at his shoes. too scared to make eye contact with me. We've already spoken to insurance adjusters, Karen continued, and we believe we can make a compelling case that community interests should be considered in any settlement. That was my cue. I stood up slowly, feeling every eye in the room turn to me. Actually, Karen, I'd like to discuss the future of Pinecrest Gardens too, I said, keeping my voice steady. She frowned. This isn't your time to speak. We have an agenda. I think you'll want to hear this, I interrupted, opening my portfolio. 3 days ago, I purchased Evergreen Management Company. I pulled out the ownership documents. For those who don't know, that's the company that owns and manages our HOA. The room went completely silent. Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for water. Effective immediately, I'm calling for a full audit of all HOA activities for the past 5 years, I announced, including all violations, fines, bank accounts, and board member communications. Karen's face turned the color of chalk. You can't do that. I already have, I replied, passing copies of my first audit request to the front row. And here's what I found so far: selective enforcement of rules against certain homeowners, falsified complaint records, and interesting payments from Thompson Property Development to 3 current board members. A woman in the back gasped. Douglas Miller finally looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. This meeting is adjourned, Karen shouted, grabbing her purse. Actually, it's not, I said calmly. Security, please make sure no one leaves yet. The police want statements from everyone. As if on cue, 2 officers entered the room. I'd shown them evidence of possible arson and fraud earlier that day. This is ridiculous. Karen's voice went shrill. You have no proof of anything. I pulled out my phone and played a recording Karen's voice discussing with her brother how to take care of the problem house once and for all. My security cameras may have burned, but my cloud storage hadn't. Mrs. Thompson, one officer said, we'd like you to come down to the station to answer some questions about the fire at this address. The room erupted in chaos. Some homeowners looked shocked. Others looked like they'd suspected it all along. 3 board members tried to slip out the back door but were stopped by police. Over the next 3 weeks, I dug through every piece of HOA paperwork. The picture got uglier by the day. Karen had been targeting elderly residents, threatening them with violations unless they paid for her consulting services on how to fix the problems. She'd forced 6 families out of their homes through excessive fines, allowing her brother to buy the properties at rock-bottom prices. I used my lawyers to help these families recover their losses. The Kaplans, an elderly couple who'd lost their retirement home, wept when I handed them the keys to their old house. We never thought we'd see it again, Mrs. Kaplan said, squeezing my hand. The Millers were next. I helped Douglas and Stephanie move back into their home, which had been sitting empty after Karen forced them into foreclosure over unauthorized landscaping that had actually been approved by the previous board. I still can't believe you did this, Stephanie said as movers brought in their furniture. Most people would have just moved away. I'm not most people, I replied, watching their children run excitedly to see their old bedrooms. As the investigation progressed, Karen's allies turned against her one by one, each hoping to save themselves. Her brother admitted to tampering with my electrical system after Karen let him into my house during a routine inspection. 2 board members confessed to helping cover up similar schemes against other homeowners. The most shocking discovery came when we found Karen's private files. She'd been planning to force out enough homeowners to allow her brother to build a commercial complex right in the middle of our residential area. The kickbacks would have made her rich while destroying our neighborhood. My phone rang as I reviewed these documents. It was the detective handling the case. We've made the arrests, he said, but we're finding more victims in other neighborhoods where she served on HOAs. How did no one catch this before? I looked out my temporary apartment window toward the ruins of my home. Because people are afraid to fight back. They don't realize how much power they actually have. Would I use that power just for justice? Or was revenge also on my mind as I prepared to completely rebuild Pinecrest Gardens from the ground up? I stood on the fresh lawn where my burned mansion once stood, watching construction crews pour the foundation for my new home. 9 months had passed since the emergency HOA meeting that turned Pinecrest Gardens upside down. "Mr. Mitchell, got a minute?" called Sofia Rodriguez, jogging across the street with a clipboard in hand. As the newly elected HOA president, she took her job seriously, but unlike Karen, she used her position to help neighbors, not hurt them. "Just finalizing plans for the community picnic next weekend," she said, showing me colorful diagrams. "We've got 30 families confirmed already." I smiled, remembering how different things were under Karen's reign, when neighbors were too afraid to even talk to each other. Now, kids played together in yards without fear of violation notices, and impromptu block parties happened almost weekly. The criminal trials had ended 3 months ago. Karen was serving 8 years for arson, fraud, and extortion. Her brother got 5 years, and 2 board members took plea deals for reduced sentences. Local news called it the HOA scandal that shocked the city. Homeowners across the country started questioning their own associations, demanding transparency and accountability. "Mr. Mitchell?" Sofia's voice pulled me back to the present. "Are you still planning to host the holiday gathering in your new home?" "Absolutely," I replied. "The East Wing is designed specifically for community events. Should be ready by December if weather cooperates. My new mansion would be even more beautiful than the original, but with significant differences. The community wing included meeting spaces, a small library, and a kitchen for cooking classes that Mrs. Kaplan wanted to teach. The gardens would be open for walking tours once a month, with the roses I loved now part of a neighborhood beautification project." As Sofia left, I noticed Douglas Miller watching from his driveway across the street. I walked over to him. "Still feels strange, doesn't it?" he asked. "Having normal lives again." "Getting there," I said. "How's the new job?" After moving back, Douglas had struggled to find work. I'd connected him with my company's HR department, and now he headed our community outreach program. "Amazing," he beamed. "We just got approval to expand the tech education initiative to 5 more schools." The sound of a moving truck caught our attention. The last of Karen's allies was leaving today, not because I forced them out, but because they couldn't handle the neighborhood's forgiveness. People offered them fresh starts, but shame drove them away instead. "Did you ever imagine it would turn out like this?" Douglas asked, gesturing around the transformed neighborhood. "I hadn't. When I bought the management company, I'd been consumed with making Karen pay. But something unexpected happened along the way. True community emerged from the ruins. The former Thompson Property Development Company, which I'd acquired during Karen's trials, had been transformed into affordable housing initiatives in neighborhoods that needed help. I discovered that revenge wasn't nearly as satisfying as rebuilding. That evening, I hosted an impromptu dinner for several neighbors on my construction site. We set up tables near where my kitchen would eventually stand, grilling burgers and sharing stories as the sunset painted the sky pink and gold. "A toast," called out Mrs. Kaplan, raising her lemonade glass, "to second chances and good neighbors. And to standing up to bullies," added Stephanie Miller, who now headed the Neighborhood Watch program. Later, as my guests helped clean up, a black sedan pulled up. A woman stepped out, Claire Foster, a reporter who'd covered the HOA scandal extensively. "Sorry to interrupt your evening," she said, "but I thought you should know 3 more HOAs in the county have been investigated based on tips that came in after your story aired. Your experience has sparked a movement." I wasn't surprised. After the trials, I'd established a legal aid fund for homeowners fighting corrupt associations. We'd already helped families in 27 states. As darkness fell, I walked the perimeter of my future home alone. Construction lights cast long shadows across what would become my grand entrance hall. Then I look at the construction site where my new life is taking shape, surrounded by neighbors who have become friends, and I know the answer without a doubt. The HOA tried to burn down my world, but instead, they gave me the opportunity to build something far more valuable than just a mansion. They gave me the chance to create a true home, not just for myself, but for an entire community that now stands together, stronger than ever before.